Hey guys, what is going on, and welcome back to another episode of that Wolfie Royals podcast. Here we are again on StreamYard, live, well, recorded, pre-recorded, but it will be a live interview as such as you see it. And I don't think there's going to be too much pre-recording or pre-editing or editing needed. So, from this episode, as you can see by the title, we are joined by none other than Mr. Chris Eaton of Snakes and the Fatman / the Fatman Nation. Now, Chris, for me, was a huge inspiration coming into the podcasts. And I actually picked his brains like crazy, as you'll probably hear later. Been a massive support all through, and any questions and any problems that I've come up with, Chris has always been there to lend a hand and sort of guide me in the right direction. And without sort of listening to Snakes and the Fat Man, there would be no that Wolfie Royals podcast. It is pretty much a direct rip-off of what Chris has been doing for years and years and years. And I've made no bones about it, and Chris knows that as well. So, but before we get into it, just a few quick things. So, coming up in July, you've got the ARC show, obviously one of the sponsors of the podcast. As you can see here on the screen behind me, you've got the amphibian and reptile club.co.uk. If you want to get tickets, now is a really good chance to do so. Register your interest and get on there. It's a fantastic show, a variety of different species available. It's local to me as well, which is absolutely fantastic. So if you do want to get over, go and have a look at the Amphibian and Reptile Club website. Register your interest for tickets. I think they are pretty much sold out. And of course, helping out with the Amphibian and Reptile Club, one of the main sponsors of the show, but also a proud sponsor of that Wolfie Royals podcast, is the guys over at JBK Racks and Reptiles. Obviously, they build the finest quality stainless steel racking in the UK, but I've also got an amazing collection as well. So if you want to keep up to date with what they're doing, head on over to social media, follow them, and keep up to date with their journey too. And a bit of a shameless plug: if you do need any animals transported to from Europe, USA, Canada, SWR shipping, obviously myself and Scott Wilkinson, we can do that for you. We can sort that out. So if you have got any purchases over the States or in Europe at all, and if you want to get animals over back from Europe or back from the US, or get animals out to buyers in the US, EU, etc., drop us a message and I'm sure we'll be able to help you out. But without further ado, I will get our guest in. So let's bring him into the forefront now. And here we go. So there we are, Mr. Chris Eaton of Snakes and the Fatman / the Fatman Nation. Thanks for coming on, Chris.
What's up, Tommy? How you been, man?
Yeah, I've been really well, thank you. How are you?
Oh, yeah, fantastic.
We'll get into that a bit later, shall we?
Never better. Okay, right.
So I just alluded to it in the little intro. I don't know if you can hear it when you're backstage or anything, but obviously you were a huge inspiration, a huge help for me setting this podcast up. As I said in the little intro, without Snakes and the Fat Man, there would be no Wolfie Royals podcast. I know I pestered you like mad when I was first setting it up, and I've pretty much ripped off your entire show. And but you've been fantastic for it all.
Well, no. The reason that I knew you were different was because you were the only guy that asked me questions, and actually listened and did the shit that I told you to do. Like fucking, I must have got 30 messages prior to you by other people, and I'm like, here's what you should do. Here's what I do, and I would tell them a process that would take like a couple of weeks to get, to put out their first episode, and they would have their first episode out 2 days later. They did nothing that I told them to do, and and they still those are the podcasts that you see in America that get like 35 views. 50 views, and you're like, well, why did you even bother? But you went out and you were like, thinking about getting this, I'm thinking about getting that, and it was probably like 2 months later that you put out your first one. Yeah. And every step of the way, you're like, hey, I bought the Roadcaster. Hey, I bought a good mic. Hey, I bought and I was like, all right, this fucking guy listens, so we're gonna help him. The fact that you ripped off the entire show, I figured that just comes with it. Like.
Hey, it's a good template. What can I say?
Yeah. As long as it's a template, I'm fine.
So, Snakes and the Fat Man, obviously you've been doing that for a number of years now. Where did that all start for you?
8 years ago. So I've been doing Snakes and the Fat Man for 8 years total. It started because in America, there was only like 2 other podcasts, reptile related at the time, you know, and one of them was Sean Bradley. It was a show called Bullshit. And every time he had a guest on, he would just interrupt the shit out of the guest, right? And you know, before you knew it, it would become the Sean show. Like he would be like, you know, he's interviewing Justin Kabilka, and he's telling Justin that he was the first guy that told ARS to put cups in their fucking tubs, and he was the first guy to build a tank this specific way, and he was the first guy that said, let's cut pizza into triangles. And he was the first guy that just did everything. And I was like, man, the only way I'm going to learn about these people is if I have them on and not interrupt them and let them talk, you know? And that's basically why I did the first Snakes and the Fat Man.
And you were still, or you were breeding reptiles still at the time, and you still had the shop front there
back
as well.
then I was still breeding full time. Yeah. And it was fun, but it was good because at the time we had a facility that had a room in it that I could turn into a podcasting room. So while I was at the facility, you know, taking care of all the animals and selling and doing all that other stuff, it would be easy just to go into the next room and record a show. You know, so that was what made it so easy to do the first few years.
And you were sort of handling quite a sizable collection back then as well.
We had 600 or 700 ball pythons. Yeah, we were breeding probably anywhere from 800 to 1,000 snakes a year. First year, like you know, first year, people told me they're like, you know, take 80 clutches and 40 of them will take. So don't worry about it, you know, because you won't get 80 clutches. So we said 100, and we said we could handle 50. And when you know, the first fucking year, fucking every goddamn snake we bred laid. And next thing you know, we had like 600 or 800 babies in the, you know, in the facility. And, you know, we had to buy new ARS racks. We had to buy new Freedom Breeder racks. We had to buy new Sea Serpent racks. And we had to when you have that many snakes at once, you have to establish it as a business quicker than you want to, you know, because we had to get rid of you know 750 snakes, 800 snakes. So so that's where we developed like a wholesale contemporaries and you know, found ways to, you know, sell to the big box merchants and then still sell. There was no morph market when I first started, or there might have been morph market, but it was in its first year with John doing it. And thank God, you know, because without that, you know, we would have had a couple of hundred snakes that we had to sit on. And when you have that many snakes, the associated costs with it are just like, there's just this phenomenal. You know, your rat bill goes from $2,500 a week to $5,000 a week, and it's just like you're like, well, got to make that money, right? So you know, it kind of forced us to become profitable right off the bat. So it was a lot of work, but I'm glad we went through it because the following years that really helped us.
And you guys were quite heavily invested as well, weren't you, from the get go? Really,
we started off with $275,000 investment.
Because I remember you guys,
because we knew
buying into like Stranger and things.
We
early.
knew you. Yeah, you can't just spend like you can't spend $10,000 and think you'll make a living at it, especially back then. Like right now, for $10,000, you could get so much more than we used to be able to get. You know, but back then it was just like, gotta come in big. You know, the good thing about my partner was that he always swings for the fences, right? So he didn't care. He was just like, let's do it. So we figured, what the hell? And it was fun, man. It was fun. But it's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of work. You know, having 600 or 700 snakes, it's, you know, it's definitely, it's a lot of work when you have a full-time job and you have to go to a facility on top of it.
Yeah.
So I was working from like 9 to 5, going to the facility at 6:30, staying there until 3, and then waking up for my 9 to 5 again every day. And it is a rough 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that that's what contributed to my stroke, you know. So it was, you know, but luckily I only had to do that for a couple of years before we started doing it full time. So.
And how easy was it to get out of it? Because obviously that's a big commitment and a big chunk of your life, really. So how easy was the decision to sort of chuck it all in?
It really wasn't that hard. I had a bunch of health problems. I had a bunch of, you know, things like that. And we got out of it pretty well, because by the time we were getting out, we hadn't bred for that year, right? So we weren't worried about new snakes.
Yeah.
And every snake we had was, you know, an $800 to a $15,000 snake, right? So we just put those up, and I mean, we got out of it really quick. And we didn't get out of it by wholesaling things. We got out of it by getting kind of top dollar for what we had. You know, we were big into puzzle, and I remember we were still, I mean, we were getting $3,000, $3,500 a puzzle, you know, and it was, so it was easy to get out. It was a lot easier than I thought it would have. You know, our main thing was getting rid of the racks and everything else and breaking the lease. That's where, that's the thing that was the most pain in the ass. But selling the snakes was no problem.
And did you ever think about stopping the podcasting then as well when he was sort of out of it?
No,
he was always going to
the
carry that
podcast
on?
I was having fun with. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to keep doing the podcast, you know. It's, you know, it was kind of like an outlet.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't have the snakes anymore. And I was like, I'm going to need an outlet for something. But having that many snakes, the thing that I tell people all the time is like, there is a huge difference between opening up a tub and taking a picture of a snake because you want to, and opening up a tub and taking a picture of a snake because you have to. Okay. So when you have to do it, it becomes a job.
Yeah.
And that's when, you know, it was at that point for us. So when I left, I mean, I left with, I think, 3 banana clowns, you know, and maybe a confusion. And that's all I had. And keeping the snakes was fun again, right? So, you know, when you only have 4 of them, and all you got to do is, you know, record a dumb podcast every 2 weeks, I mean, that made life way easier.
Yeah.
But when 2 of those snakes got pregnant, I was like, shit. I was like, God damn it. I was like, what am I going to do with 12 more snakes in the house? But luckily, the podcast was chugging along enough to where people wanted to buy a snake from just Snakes and the Fat Man.
Yeah. Right.
So all I did was put them up for my Patreon people, and they sold within 2 or 3 days. You know, so if I were to get back into it nowadays, I would keep it very small, and I would just sell everything through Patreon, and not even use Morph Market or anything like that.
Do you have any plans to get back into it at all, or is that sort of that ship's gone?
No, that ship's sailed. I'm getting into other species. I got a skink right now. I'm going to get into frilled dragons over the summer. I got a couple coming next month, and that's really it. I'm getting more into the lizards, to be honest with you. The monitors, they're a lot more fun than the snakes, and I'm just the ball python hobby is so like toxic, you know, and it's so there's definitely 20% great people. All right, there's without a doubt 20%, but 80% of the people are fucktards that don't know what they're talking about, and they're hard to be around, you know. So, so getting back into the hobby, not so much, but keeping the podcast going, I'm going to still do that.
Absolutely,
you know, I'm still friends with all the big people, so we may as well, you know, if it's not, excuse me, if it's not broke, don't break it, you know.
Did you ever envisage the podcast getting to the level that it is now?
No, not at all. No, I mean, not at all. The only time I knew it was bigger than I thought it was when I did a hot chick episode and people came after me trying to cancel me, and I was like, who the fuck even listens to this show that they're coming out to cancel me? And that's when I realized it was big to a point. And then I went to like a reptile show in Arlington, and literally I took like 200 or 300 pictures that day with people. And I was just like, okay, all right, this is cool. Obviously, we're making some people laugh. And I knew we were selling a lot of shirts. That's kind of how I knew too. When the shirt sales just skyrocketed, I was like, oh, all right, we're doing okay. But then I figure, but so what? You're still in this tiny niche of a community. Like fucking, I always tell people like, oh yeah, I'm reptile famous. That's such a big deal. It is not. It is not a big deal at all.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah, no one would know who you were if you was just walking down the street, away from reptiles.
Nobody. The biggest guy in the world, Justin at Canova. If I just knocked on my neighbor's door and I was like, what do you think of Justin Kabilka and Canova? They'd be like, who the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. Right. And that's the biggest guy in the world. Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't even consider yourself reptile famous. I do remember I was in this situation before, because when I was in the band, we had a show with like Bon Jovi or Aerosmith, right? And we played in front of like 25,000 people, right?
Awesome.
And we thought we were the shit, right? Like and I went home the next day and I went to the supermarket and I ran into a friend of mine from high school, and he was like, yo, you're still doing this music shit? And I was like, fuck, I'm nothing. Like, dude, I just played in front of 25,000 people last night. He's like, I don't know who you are, So that's what the reptile hobby is like, but with a lot more like psychotic white trash fans. But like the reptile is just, the business is just filled with so much white trash, and it's fun, but it's also, like, come on, guys, we could do a little better, So
obviously, Snakes and the Fatman, you've started doing a little bit of a rebrand over to the Fatman Nation. What's the basis? What's the formula behind that? What's coming?
Just because I felt like Snakes and the Fatman was just pigeonholing me into just reptiles, right? And I like other stuff, man. So I'm like, I want to start doing, shows about different things and, not include reptiles. And I just thought Snakes and the Fatman that'll forever be tied to this specific, hobby. So I started doing the Fatman Nation thing because, me and my friends wanted to do like political stuff and funny stuff and, help other people out. And the Snakes and the Fatman name is very, it's hard to start up a business and register a business when it got the word snakes in it, right? So it's like Fatman Nation was just something funny that I thought would be cool. And it seems to be working out pretty well. So I'm happy with the rebrand. I'm happy with the shirt sales. I'm happy with the new shows that we have coming out. And really, I'm not stuck just talking about snakes anymore. If I want to go out into the woods once I get this new leg and hunt for Bigfoot and record it, like I'll put it up there and people watch it, So, and I couldn't just put that under Snakes and the Fatman. I mean, I could change it to Bigfoot and the Fatman, but that would be a lot of name changes for the different things that I'm interested in, So yeah, that's the only reason that I did the rebrand. And I just wanted to help other people out, like just, like, hey, you've hit a point where it's acceptable that, you could just help other people, get to the point where you're at. And that's what's fun about Fatman Nation too, is that we get to help out new podcasters, new creative people who have ideas, we'll put some money behind them, and we'll do whatever we need to, and make it fun again. Because there was a couple of years where I just felt like Snakes and the Fat Man was getting real stagnant. And, I was just walking. I'm sure this happens to you all the time. You walk into that room and you're like, oh, I got to do this again. And it was feeling like that a lot more. And then I got introduced to like Patreon and doing lives and things, things like that made it fun again.
Yeah.
So like right now I'm having a ball with it, so I can't complain at all.
I mean, you said you've been doing it for 8 years. I mean, that's a pretty big slog to do a podcast on a really small market, really niche market.
Yeah.
How do you manage? How do you manage to keep it fresh all the time? How does it keep fresh for you? And because the good thing with you is your episodes are very different all the time.
Right. Well, I get to talk to different people that I wouldn't ordinarily talk to every day, and that makes it fun for me, But listen, I hate people, right? Like I can't, people are just the worst. But I don't mind meeting people, like on StreamYard or, meeting people that are incredibly different from me. And those are the people that I like talking to. So that's why Snakes and the Fat Man doesn't always have like snake guests on it. We'll have directors on it. We'll have musicians on it. It just, if you're interesting, I'll have you on Snakes and the Fat Man. And that's pretty much the key. And I think that also the key is to do one for you and one for me, right? Like I do one show that's specifically for ball python people, right? And it'll be like Justin or something.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll do another one with Will Banks, and I'll do 2 in a row. But then I need to do one with me, one for me every time.
Keep you
and
sane.
I'll basically have like a musician on or a director on, because those are the people that I'm interested in talking to also. So there's really no secret to keeping it fresh. I mean, I just change up your graphics every year, change up your song, and put a little money into yourself, and you'll be able to keep it fresh for 10 years, So we'll see how. Oh, and the 15 minutes thing always kept it fresh also.
Well, the big competition at the end of the year as well.
It's so much fun. Yeah, it's so much fun. And it's been more fun the last 2 or 3 years when people really started, doing reels and really campaigning for themselves. They make it a lot of fun. The show wouldn't be what it is without the 15 minutes people.
Oh yeah, I mean, you have got a diehard set of listeners that are there for pretty much every show, whether it be like a Fat Man Live or an episode of the podcast or whatever it is. But it's a core group of people all the time.
Well, yeah. There's definitely because it always fluctuates between like 800 and 1100 on YouTube. But then what people don't see is it's the audio thing is still a big part of it.
Yeah.
And we still get 3 to 6 to 8,000 audio downloads every episode also. And that's what's fun. And I knew audio would be better still, because who the fuck wants to look at me for an hour, right? And just like, if you don't have to look at me, don't look at me, all right? Listen to it on audio, So that's the way I feel about it. But yeah, it's the people. It's the people that always show up, and the people that come. They're the only reason that you keep doing it, Do
you ever feel like, I get it sometimes, so this episode, I'm only doing 1 a month. You're doing like 2 shows a month for the Snakes and the Fat Man, and then whatever else you're doing on top for the Fatman Nation.
Well, I do a show a week, consistently. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get it sometimes, and I try and do 1 a month, and I feel like, I've not really met the deadline this time, or I've not put an episode out on time.
Right.
And then I go, I really should get it out, because I've got sponsors that are paying to do this, and I should get some promo and some advertising done or something. But it's hard. It is tricky.
It's hard, and I do think about the sponsors all the time too, and like you have to make it worth it for them, right? Like what, and if you got 300 views on your show, it's not really worth a $2,000 price tag or a $2,500 price tag to a sponsor to get 300 views a show, because they already have those people.
Yeah,
So if you're not bringing consistency to the sponsors, you have to do it. But there's been a lot of shows where I'm like, oh fuck, I got to do this again, and just end up like you. And you tend to know those shows because I'm not bringing the same amount of energy or anything to that show. I'm basically just like, oh crap, I got to do this again, and just kind of go from there. So, yeah, no, it's what you sign up for, man. Like I tell everybody that does a show on the Fatman Nation, or if they're just starting out, like you got to commit to a year. Whether you're doing this twice a month or once a week, you got to commit to a year, because for a year you're going to be talking to yourself. Nobody's going to give a shit. Normally it's the first year that you start building off that, and people want to see consistency, and they want to see that you'll show up every month, because otherwise, why else would they choose to listen or sponsor you?
Yeah. Have you ever had episodes where I've had a few where I've sat down and recorded it, and the conversation's been pretty difficult, and you just go,
yeah.
I don't really know how I'm going to edit that to make that sound good.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Bob Clark. Bob Clark was my fucking like idol growing up. I used to see Bob Clark on the cover of National Geographic.
Yep.
I used to see Bob Clark fucking on TV shows and on the Tonight Show and shit. And then I got to interview him, and he was such a fucking curmudgeony motherfucker that I was just like, you sound like a boring old man, and basically I had to edit that show down to like 35 minutes,
oh, wow.
Because he was such a dick and such a fucking pain in the ass to fucking record with. So yeah, no, I have those a lot. I have one unaired show with Sean that was my first interview with him, and I never aired it because I'm like, you turned it into the fucking Sean show. I'm not going to put this out under Snakes and a Fat Man, because you turned it into an episode of bullshit because you can't shut the fuck up, right? And so I actually found that one recently, and I'm going to put it up on Patreon. So that's going to be fun for people to look back and listen to, But yeah, I have those kind of shows all the time, man. all the time.
How have you found the Patreon? Has it been, because obviously there was like a fairly large argument or disagreement with paywalling people and things like that. Has it been a positive change over to Patreon for you?
Total positive, and not because of the money. And I don't make much off Patreon. I make $200 or $300 a month, but there's the potential there to make, fucking 8,000-10,000. And that's for a small creator. But what Patreon allows you to do is not worry about the content that you have to put up.
Yeah.
You don't have to adhere to YouTube rules. You don't have to adhere to, anybody, anybody's political views or anything like that. And Patreon, the platform is so much more fun than I thought it would be, because I used to be very anti-Patreon. I used to be like, fuck that. I'm not going to beg people for money. I do this because I have fun, But then I realized, like, yeah, you can't really do that. I remember exactly when I decided to do it. I put out a video that YouTube pulled off right away. Okay. and like after like 20 minutes, YouTube just took that shit down. And then I was like, yeah, maybe I'll move over to this Patreon thing. And moving over, it's also a lot of fun because it's like another platform to kind of conquer, Yeah. Like you got to learn how to do it. And it's with your diehard fans, like that you're not going to offend your diehard fans. So you could say and do whatever you want. So it's a lot of fun. Patreon is definitely something that has ended up being worth it for me.
Do you find you can be more unfiltered and sort of unadulterated on Patreon?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like things that I would do on YouTube and ordinarily beep out the curses and, things like that. I just throw that shit up on Patreon because they know how I talk and they know, that I curse every third word, So, Patreon is worth it for people who have been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
If you've been in the hobby for a fucking year and you have a Patreon, go fuck yourself, all right? Because you're not bringing nothing to the table. But if you have, 8 years experience podcasting and 30 years experience being in reptiles, then you have something that people could at least, that adds value to people, you know? So why would you not do that? But if you're under a year breeding and you have a Patreon, you know, I can't tell you harder to go fuck yourself, you know?
Yeah, there is certainly a few of those, especially in, you know,
There's
UK
a lot
based.
of
Yeah,
them. Yeah.
there's quite a few, but I'm assuming there's probably a hell of a lot more of those in the US as well.
Yeah, and I make fun of all of them, right? So yeah.
Which is, yeah, that's part of the reason I think people love tuning into the shows and listening to what you're saying, because you are pretty much say it as you see it. You don't really care who you piss off.
Oh, because at this point, I mean, I'm 50 years old. I had a stroke. I lost a leg. You think I'm worried about what reptile people think of me? Like I am not. All right. So
the mindset has changed.
Yeah, totally. And it does that. Like, you know, like every 10-year mark, you know, when you're 30, you're like, all right, maybe I don't want to go out every night anymore. When you're 40, you don't want to go out at all. When you're 50, you just say no. You don't even answer the phone when your people call you. It's, you know, and that's where I'm at now. Like, if I have to go to a show, like a reptile show, I have to really psych myself up for it. You know, because you know it's going to be 2 or 3 days of just idiots hounding you.
Yeah.
And that's just how it goes. You know, it's part of the job, you know.
So something you touched on there, obviously quite a big moment and impact on your life, specifically losing the leg.
Yeah.
How is rehab? How is recovery? You know, what's the process and the journey like?
Oh, it sucks. You know, it sucks. It's you tend to think like beforehand, like, it's just a leg, right? Like I'll figure it out. It's just a leg. Yeah, no, it's a lot more than that. You know, it's you know, it's you know a year worth of rehab. It's a year fucking being in a wheelchair. It's you know, it's 6 to 10 months waiting for just the operation to heal. You know, it's a lifetime of phantom pain where your leg is actually killing you, but it's not there. So you know you can't take anything for it. You can't take any kind of medication for it. These are things that the doctors didn't tell me about. They told me there's a bunch of advancements in prosthetics, so you'll be fine. They didn't tell me that, like, you know, it's going to be different when you go to the bathroom. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, you're going to be all off balance and shit on the bowl. And it's just, it sucks, man. It sucks. But what I've started doing was I started recording the I hate when people say journey, right? But the journey of me getting the new leg on Patreon, and I kind of let people see like what you go through, like behind the scenes that I ordinarily wouldn't show people on like YouTube, you know. But then you also figure, you know, like, hey. You know, like I went to we went to a Bigfoot convention recently, and
those things exist.
Oh yeah, no, this was awesome. This was awesome. It's so great. And they had like psychic card readers there, and like I had a card reading, and I was like, the woman was like, "Why are you doing this?" So I'm like, "Listen, I'm just doing this really to get a heads up on if anything else is going to go wrong." You know, like just. And it was fun, but it sucks, right? But what are you gonna do? You're gonna sit and complain about it every day, or you know? And I definitely give myself, like, when I'm feeling sorry for myself, I'll give myself like 15 minutes in the morning, and then after that, I'm gonna say to myself, it's just a leg. Get up and fucking work, you idiot. You know, like you got to keep working. You got to keep your mind busy. You know, so it's been a lot harder for I don't want to say this the wrong way, but people have had it a lot harder than I have, you know, because even when I was in rehab, I was feeling like I would see these people, because I was in rehab for a month, and you know, like live in rehab, and you would see these people that just got fucked up, and they'd be missing 2 legs, and they'd be missing an arm also, and you know, you're just like, look, I just lost a leg. I got it fine. I'm not going to sit and complain when this guy, you know, can't even roll over, you know, like fucking when he's laying down. So, and and you know, like kids with fucking cancer and shit like that. Like fucking, I'm like, you lost a leg, shut the fuck up and get back to work, you know? So that's kind of the way I've been hitting it. And it's been working, you know, for now, at least.
I mean, for me, I mean, you obviously detailed the event pretty much on social media. You was pretty open and honest about it from the get-go and things. And for me, I think it was like, everyone always gets this like impression of you being like that brash New Yorker sort of
right
bullshit attitude, you know, don't give a fuck sort of thing. But that was like the first time for me, and we've only spoken sort of briefly on through Messenger and things here and there, but you was like quite vulnerable and quite open with it all, and it was quite nice to see. But you know what I mean? It was good to see that sort of softer side of you.
Well, sure, but I'll tell you, if I would have known how the pussy floodgates were gonna just rip open, okay, I would have did this 5 or 10 years ago, okay? Because I put on I put out that one video where I almost cried in it, right? And then boom, that night I was getting messages like, I always wanted to fuck a guy with a robot leg, and I always wanted to, you know, like it was unbelievable, right? So it was definitely a lot of fun, but it's but you still like you know, you can't help but fucking like feel inadequate, especially when you're in the chair, you know, because I was doing laundry the other day, and I live in a complex, so the laundry room is downstairs. So I went to take the elevator, and you know, when you look up at the what floor the elevator's on, I was in a wheelchair, and that shit looked like it was 80 feet away from me, right? Like I was just like, no, we can't be living like this anymore, man. You know, so hopefully within the next 6 to 8 months, I'll be walking again, and I'll be showing up at these shows and doing all this normal shit, and just you know, going back to life as normal. So we'll see. So also, like, I feel bad, like getting on a plane, and they're like, you know, anybody limbless gets on, you know, could come on now. And, you know, you're rolling up to the door, and there's like army guys that lost their legs in war and all that. And then you're like, wow, fucking, I don't even want to get on now, because all I did was make a ton of shitty decisions when I was younger. You know, you actually went to war and saved the country. Okay, you go on first. I'll go on last. You know, it's fine. So I just don't. I don't take advantage of any of the handicap stuff, but I do take advantage of the fucking sticker in your car.
Oh, absolutely.
Now I could go to Costco. I get premium parking at Costco every time I go there. You know, so that's the only thing that I really take advantage of. But I don't do a lot of the stuff that I could do, just because I'm technically labeled handicapped now. You know, so.
Do you still have the stickered leg from Tinley in October?
Oh yeah. Well, I don't have the stickered one. Fucking Justin, for some reason, won it and then kept it. The bastard, right? So I was like, "Why are you keeping it, man?" And he's like, "Oh, it looks good in our shipping room." And but I have the one that everybody signed in Arlington.
Okay.
So I have that here. And a matter of fact, I'm redoing this whole room in the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to make sure that gets a prominent spot, you know, in the on the Fatman wall. So yeah, it's and that was another cool thing, knowing that people actually went and they did an auction for me, and they did all this other shit, and I was very against them doing an auction, because I was so scared that it was going to be the lowest earning auction in NARBC history, right? I was like, they're going to send me a check for $80, and fucking, I was terrified of that. Okay, but luckily at the end it wasn't. So I was happy with that, and it was cool to see the community come together. But I'll tell you, that was still only 20% of the community. You know, fucking imagine if 80% came through. You know, which they never will. So fuck them. But that's why I keep doing everything for the 20% of the community. That's badass. You know.
It was great to see that. You know, one thing we are particularly good at as a reptile community is everyone does come together in moments of need, and we've seen it several times throughout throughout the last 10 years, Chase, JT, yourself. So it was really cool to see.
It's great because Chase and JT, they were sending me video of them going to store after store looking for legs to buy, from department store to, and Chase, JT, Summer, and Patrick McKnight from Chimera did it. And I gotta say, I almost cried. They're sending me these videos. They're like, we're at our 9th store right now and we think we got it, right? So they got it, and they did all the auctions, and it was great, man. It was actually brought a smile to an old fucking grumpy fat man, So I'll definitely, I'll forever be in everybody's debt for that.
Yeah, I mean, it was, like I say, it was great to see, and if anyone's deserving of it, it's certainly you. You've put in a lot of time and a lot of hours into the shows and everything over the last 8 years. So
yeah, but really, have I though? I put a lot of time and a lot of hours into a dick and fart joke fucking show that is most of the time fun to do, So that's why I appreciated it even more, because I wasn't a reptile breeder and I wasn't a reptile, even keeper at that point. So that was very cool of the people to do that for me. So I love all the guys that have done that and contributed to a GoFundMe and all that, because I asked a bunch of my friends in the hobby. I was like, I don't really like, my job is paying for everything. The insurance is paying for everything. I really don't need this money. Like, should I just not take it? And they told me, listen, if you give something back, you'll look like more of a dick than if you just take it and say thank you and, and do all that. So that's what I did. And then I upgraded a lot of the shit here with it, so it's, it's definitely a cool moment when they all come together like that. But, like we do it for each other. Like this year, a guy's wife died of breast cancer. And, we all contributed to that. And, basically the whole goal of this thing is just to pay it forward every time there's somebody with a problem. Yeah. And I got no problem doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So something you're probably not going to want to touch on because you hate them is snakes, ball pythons, the reptile community in general. But I think it's going to be great to get an impartial attitude and impartial opinion from you. So where do you see sort of the market at the moment? How are things over in the US? What's your sort of take on everything at the moment?
The ball python market in general? Oh, okay. Ball python market, there'll always be that high-end market, right? There'll always be the people that'll spend $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 on a snake. But really, at the end of the day, when you spend that much money, your only customers are other breeders or, people that want to get into breeding, right? Yeah. And I think it's going to get worse over the next 2 years or so. And then I think you'll see like a partial comeback. I think that even like the big guys like Bob Vu and Canova and all that, they see that there's money that they're leaving on the table in the pet market also. So now you know, like there was a lot of like wholesaling of like $200 animals and $500 animals. And now if you go to Bob Vu's table, you'll see everything from $200 to $20,000 on Bob Vu's table. Yeah. So if you think that you're going to get in the market right now and just sell $200 and $300 animals, it's not going to be worth it. It's not going to be worth it for you because the time that you put into it is not worth the $300 sale. But the thing that I'm happy about is I see this shift in the market, at least in America here, from where people are going from, I want to be a millionaire. These ball pythons are going to be the reason I get rich. And that's slowly transforming into, hey, if these ball pythons get me an extra 50 grand a year, in addition to my regular job, that's a pretty good living to make. And I like seeing that shift because that type of attitude is more attainable than the I'm going to make $1 million with ball pythons, you know?
Yeah.
So you got to remember, if you make 70,000 a year at your regular job, and then you make an extra 50,000 a year selling ball pythons, that just upgraded your income to $120,000 a year. That's a whole different lifestyle for you.
Yeah.
You know, so that's more realistic. I don't think that people are going to be shooting for the $1 million companies anymore. Plus, these ball python people won't put the fucking time in it anyway to make the $1 million company. You know, so I think if you're getting into ball pythons in 2024, you have no chance of making money. I think if you got into it about 5 years ago, there's still a chance of you kind of, you know, doing well for yourself.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I think if you're getting into it now, although you can get a lot more for your money, I think it's a hell of a lot more of a struggle in terms of competition that's out there. And there's a lot more people
can you get
in.
more for your money, really? Because I think that Desert Ghost clowns are going to be $800 by the end of the year. Okay. I also think that, at least in America, this is going to be the first year where people start wholesaling ball pythons for food, you know, to other animals.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, you could get great animals for $1,000 now, but can that animal make you money down the road? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, you know? I think that there still has to be a buy-in to the bigger breeders, right? There still has to be, like, you know, you have to get, if you want to guaranteed making money, you have to spend that $5,000, that $10,000 on one snake in order to kind of, you know, build a support structure for getting that extra 50 grand a year.
Yeah.
Or 30 grand a year, you know?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes complete sense. I'm going to quickly run some sponsor slides, Chris. So I'm going to quickly kick you back out, and I'll bring you back in just a moment.
Just so you know, when the sponsors were running before, I couldn't hear what you were saying.
Oh, maybe I won't run it then. Maybe I'll just put them in. Maybe I'll just do that in post-edit. Because I think to run the sponsors, I've got to remove myself out as well, but I don't know if that cuts all of my audio.
Oh, no, that'll probably work. But I'm telling you, when you would do just doing the screenshots before,
okay,
your audio cut out.
We'll leave it as it is then. I'll just put them in post. That's fine. No That's much easier. I was trying to get away from having to do any editing, but we'll run them in post. That's no problem at all. So one of the questions that I always ask on every podcast, and I think it will be slightly different answers from you, is you've got a dinner party. You can invite 4 guests, dead or alive. Who are they going to be and why?
Robert Downey Jr., right? Because you know, I'd like Iron Man at my dinner, right? I would definitely do that.
Not the guy from Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, I forgot his name. That would actually be even better if it was Robert Downey Jr. from Tropic Thunder who showed up at the dinner party. That would definitely be cool. Elon Musk, because that dude is just brilliant, and he figures out shit that nobody else can. Tesla, probably.
Nikola.
And then, like, one of the Tuskegee Airmen from World War II. You know, the first black plane pilots.
Okay.
From World War II. Because I met one of them one time before he died, and he had the best white people jokes that I've ever heard in my life, right? So he would be a little bit of levity, right? So yeah, that, and you know, my girlfriend maybe, you know, so she could join in the white people jokes. But yeah, I don't know. There's so many people, you know, like there's so many people that I would kill to sit down with. The people are, but like, I like people who build $1 billion idea out of just some dumb concept.
Yeah.
Right. Like George Lucas. Like, I would love sitting down with George Lucas. I mean, this guy had a dumb movie almost 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And when he sold his company, he sold it to for $4 billion to Disney. So now there's one dude with $4 billion. Okay. And that's, and it's still going, years after he's going to be dead. They're still going to be making Star Wars.
Oh, absolutely.
There's guys like Stan Lee, like people like that who just turn these little ideas that they might have drew on a piece of toilet paper into some massive kind of business thing is just that amazes me every time. Yeah.
I mean, Disney is still pumping out like Star Wars spin-off series.
Yeah, but they're shit series though. Fucking so.
Yeah, I just finished watching Ahsoka and I didn't really think that was that great.
I actually thought Ahsoka was great because I was a big fan of like the Clone Wars and Rebels and things like that. But this new thing, the Acolyte.
Yeah, I haven't started it
yet. They managed to do something that was never done before. They made lesbian space witches who could use the Force unappealing to Star Wars fans whose demographic is like 18 to 40, So, like anything woke, I can't stand. And I know you guys in England are, a lot of you guys think the same thing because I've seen that dumb purple-haired girl with the stop oil thing, throwing the orange paint on everything and fucking blocking traffic and shit. And I like my favorite. What do you call it? Secret thing to do is there's this guy from England who does a show every week called Delusional Woke People Getting Owned. Right. and it's just like a 20-minute video of fucking shit that's happened in England that week and them beating the shit out of woke people and fucking beating the shit out of the weird trans people who fucking want to do this and want to do that. It's pretty funny. But it's that's one of I forgot what they call that, but
guilty pleasure.
Guilty pleasure. Yeah. Fucking that's one of my favorite things to do. Right.
Yeah. I mean, the wokeness has gone crazy in the UK. I don't know what it's like in the US, but it's
just as bad. Crazy. I mean, you got 400-pound dudes, dressing like women and going into the women's bathroom. And you're like, if I had a daughter, I don't know if I'd be okay with that, But like, you could do whatever you want, but fucking don't make me fucking have to change my language just to talk to you,
Yeah, I mean, it's completely ridiculous, I identify as is just the same as I pretend to be. That's pretty much all it is.
Yeah, one girl here identified as a cat, and the mother forced the school to have a litter box in the classroom. And I was like, listen, if you want to identify as a cat, that's fine, but cats don't go to school, man. All right, so get your kid out of the fucking school. Right. So it's really just it's so ridiculous. And there's a lot of woke people in the reptile community. Yeah, and them by their dumb green hair and the fat girls like what they're muffin tops and they got fucking green and orange hair and you're like, oh, I wouldn't touch that if you paid me. So I'm sure it's the same out there.
Yeah, it is. It's gone beyond sort of what you ever thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
it's gone crazy, and that's now the norm almost. Like that wokeness is what everything is based upon.
Yeah. It's and I find it funny in America that we're actually changing laws to accommodate like 0.3% of the population. Like what? Like why would you do that? It's just I don't get it. I don't fucking get it, man. And it's of course I'm too old to say things like that, but we lost like so many good words.
Yeah.
Like, we lost retard, can't say retarded anymore. Right. And it was never like fucking calling a retarded person retarded.
No.
It would just be like, your buddy going like, let's go here, then we'll go here, then we'll go back there. And you're like, that's retarded, man. Like, why would you do that? Can't say that anymore. Can't say midget. And midget was so good because I never thought we'd lose midget. Like fucking.
It's a descriptive word.
Yeah, it's like fucking now what do you got to say? It's like the really short guy with the arms, like fucking with the T-Rex arms, that's
Looks a
I,
bit
I
like
mean,
Willow.
right. When I was in Hollywood, we actually rented midgets for one show and dressed them up as little pigs. Okay. And fucking and now you can't even and they're still rentamidget.com. That's where we got them from. But you can't call them midgets anymore, man. I don't like that. You can't say that's gay anymore. Fucking never say, I never called a gay guy gay in my life. I use gay to describe a situation,
Yeah.
So it's we're losing a lot. But look, I'm a 50-year-old white guy. What do I know?
You'll be fine. We'll get through it. We'll come out the other side, and hopefully it all changes pretty soon.
Yeah.
Whether it will or not, who knows? But
a lot of people say it's fucking China because China plays the long game, right? And basically the Chinese corporations are the one pushing the woke stuff. And China's like, yo, we don't give a shit what happens tomorrow.
Nah.
But in 20 years, they're going to have a bunch of gay people in their army and they're not going to want to do shit to defend themselves. So we'll invade in 20 years. We're good to go. So, and then there might be a little truth behind that. I don't know.
Possibly. I mean, it would make great sense.
Yeah, right? Jesus
So,
Christ.
One of the last things we do on this podcast is the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing who that guest will be. So the question that you have been left is, what do you wish you know, or what do you know now that you wish you knew back when you started?
I mean, I would have known the height to sell stuff at, because I never think it'll go to those highs again. So, we still got good money when we closed down, but I kind of felt like the guy that had the first 10,000 shares of Apple, and then died broke because he sold them for like $600.
Yeah.
So I wish I had the foresight to see that, but my brain is not just made up that way, Like Mike Wilbanks, I did an interview with him on Patreon, and he told me that 5 years ago they were preparing for the switch over to pet quality animals as opposed to investment quality animals.
Oh, right, okay.
And so right now he's positioned to fucking just take over shit, you know. I wish my mind was working more like that, So I would love that. I would have loved that.
Yeah, I mean that's because 5 years ago was like the boom as well. That was when people were spending quite a large amount of money with the COVID and the stimulus checks over in the US, and we had furlough over here in the UK and things.
Well, that's the whole thing. Is like Sean Bradley sold right before COVID, right? And if Sean Bradley would have just held on for another year when COVID hit, he would have made 4 times his money.
Yeah.
So no, I wish I sold everything. I wish I held on to everything until COVID and then sold everything during COVID, right? Because there was a height, and I just don't think the height's going to get to that point ever again.
Yeah. No, I don't think it will either. I can't
because
see it.
people were spending stupid money. I mean, we spent $18,000 on our first 2 strangers.
Yeah.
And they were females and they were babies.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like, there's just, I wish I had the ability to see more in the hobby I was technically in. So that would have been great.
Do you think there's still genes out there that will bring that sort of money? But for the majority of the market, I mean, obviously you're still going to have the big guys that are buying in at the very start of things that will spend that money and not worry too much about it. But
no, the reason that I don't think that is because they fucked up the system. All right. And the system was somebody in Africa would find something new and they would send it over to New York or to America for $60,000 or $70,000 or $100,000. But the problem that we did wrong is we let the people in Africa know how much we were getting for this shit.
Yeah.
So now the people in Africa are setting up fucking breeding facilities and breeding the shit out of that one animal.
Yeah.
And then they're telling us in America that this is the only one, and we give them, $90,000 for it, but they have 20 more that they're going to sell to 19 other guys.
Yeah.
So I don't think so. I mean, maybe there'll definitely be combos that are worth that much, because like imagine if you had a quad combo of like lavender, albino, pied, clown, and hypo, like that's going to put you ahead of everything, so much quicker. So people will still spend the $20,000 or, $25,000 on that. But I don't think there's going to be a new gene that comes out. Maybe if some turns the snake purple, maybe that'll do it. But, other than that, I don't think there's going to be. But I'm the guy that just told you that I wish I could have saw more into the future. So don't listen to me, right? Who the fuck knows?
Yeah, there was obviously quite with that COVID boom, quite a few people bought in quite heavily, and they're probably going to be feeling the pinch quite heavily now.
Well, that's because they were getting free money.
Yeah.
I knew a dog walker that was getting paid $5,000 a month from the government. A fucking dog walker, man. Not like an engineer, not a fucking.
That's crazy.
Not an architect. A fucking dog walker making $5,000 a month. So people just had the money to spend. So
that's
that
insane.
coupled with having to stay home and you needing a hobby, that's what caused that whole COVID boom.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And those people that were spending that money were, spending it with breeders, bumping up their paychecks, bumping up their investments, and then all of a sudden the bottom of the market drops out and the top of the market can't move either.
Right. And everybody's fucked. Okay. And listen, nothing brings me more pleasure than seeing people waste a bunch of money. Like, I fucking love that. I love the idiot that remortgaged his house and then ends up losing his house. Like, fucking, I love seeing that. But at the same time, a lot of smart people got pulled into it too. And, that's who I feel bad for, is the people that are like, Jesus Christ, I put $200,000 of my money into this thing.
Yeah.
And I could maybe get $60,000 back if I sold everything right now. So it's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
But there's opportunity there for people that have $60,000 to buy that $200,000 worth of animals for $60,000, and then they'll be able to make their money back. So.
Yeah, no, the opportunity is there. I just don't know whether, particularly in the UK, I'm not sure what it's like in the US. I just don't know if anyone's particularly wanting to take that chance.
Well, there's 70,000 ball pythons for sale on Morph Market right now between America and Canada.
So that's gone up quite substantially.
70,000, or it might be 50,000. I'm talking out of my ass. Fuck Morph Market. But fucking at the end of the day, it's like even 50,000. That's like I remember when we got our first record into Tower Records, right? The band was thrilled. Like, we were happy. And our manager was like, what the fuck are you so happy about? And we're like, well, our record is in Best Buy or Tower Records. And he goes, yeah, great. He goes, your record is now amongst 50,000 other bands that you have to hope that somebody, will stumble across your record and hope that they buy it. They're like, this means nothing, and really deflated the fuck out of us right now. And that's how Morph Market is right now. You're basically one of 50,000 and you have to hope to sell. That's why Morph Market is jumping into the auction thing.
Yeah.
Because, there's no surprise if you sell an animal for 30 cents on the dollar, you're going to sell that animal a lot quicker, so.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah. I don't think, I've done a couple of Morph Market auctions, and some of them have been okay. Some of them have been, pretty terrible, to be honest.
Right. Yeah, I believe it.
I think people are. I don't know if anyone's actually wanting to buy at the moment because they're waiting for everything just to come onto auction.
Yeah.
Because they know that the process is going to be okay. If it's been on Morph Market for 3 months and there's not been any interest on it, okay, it was probably going to be on auction in 4 to 6 months, and I'll get it at $200 or whatever it would be.
Right. Well, this started about maybe 3 years ago, or maybe 2 years ago, 90% of the people that buy ball pythons, meaning like the regular people that'll spend $1,500 or less, right? There's always another ball python now. So if you lose that one in an auction, you know that fucking Jerry is selling the exact animal, for a similar price. So whereas it used to be like Justin had the only one, in the world.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to buy it, you could buy it. And now for 90% of the market, they have the options to just wait it out or buy it somewhere else,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is obviously still some breeders that are kind of insulated from the crash and from the dip, but I think for like you say, 90% of the people, it's real.
Right. Because 90% of the people aren't. I would say even like 98% of the people aren't at Justin's level.
No.
Justin's at a level where money's no object to him. So he could get anything. But even Justin isn't, looking to Africa for the new things. I know that in the Netherlands, there's a lot of new stuff coming out that people, want to get a hold of. But as far as Africa, I think that's dead right now.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of new genes that are floating around in Europe and in the UK. So obviously Justin's got the Cosmos and Brittany had the Cosmos and stuff. And that's still holding pretty good value. And you've got the Tornado as well, which has come out of the UK. Which
is that's Darren, right?
That's Darren,
yeah. Yeah.
And that's
Darren
still holding pretty good.
I have to get him back on the show. I fucking love Darren. Darren is so much fun. I mean, that dude is just a great dude to hang out with. So, it's you people over in England got some decent people there.
There is, yeah. I mean, there's some really good stuff, and it's now hopefully now that obviously we're doing the shipping. Hopefully now that's sort of an avenue and a route that people can go down. We can get more stuff over into the UK, into the US from the UK. So, fingers crossed. Maybe it'll be beneficial in the long run.
Yeah, hopefully. I don't think so, though.
No, who knows? It's ball pythons, who knows? Right, we've been going in an hour and 10 minutes. I'm not going to take up too much of your time now, Chris. Where can people find you?
Fatman Nation, everywhere. So definitely check it out. Definitely follow on the Instagram page and Facebook and YouTube. And if you like what you see there, then maybe you consider joining the Patreon. Patreon has a lot of fun stuff that we don't put everywhere else. So, and it's the Fatman Nation everywhere you look.
And will you be doing any shows this year? Are you going to go to Tinley?
I'm trying to get to Tinley October, but more likely it's going to be Tinley March.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Well, I'll definitely be over in October. I'm booked ready to go. So.
I'll let you know as the time approaches. We'll see if I'm walking or not.
Yeah. Yeah, no worries at all. Obviously, that's some things have got priority.
Yeah, no, I got you. All right, it's all good. But thank you, brother. I appreciate you taking the time and having fun. No,
absolutely. Now. I mean, ever since I started this podcast, and like we said at the start, it was hugely inspired by Snakes and the Fatman because there was nothing else to listen to at the time. So I wanted to do something a bit more UK based, and like we said at the start, I pretty much ripped your whole show off and just renamed it. So
I'm glad I could help. Right.
But no, it's been a pleasure and always good catching up with you, man. And
thank you, brother. You too.
I'm sure you know the score anyway. Just hang around until it uploads, and
yep.
I'll finish this off and then I'll pull you back in and we'll have a little chat.
You got it. Thanks everybody for watching and listening.
Thank you very much, Chris.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, man. So there we have it, guys. That was obviously Chris from Snakes and the Fatman. I love sitting down with Chris, having a chat. Yeah, he's been a huge support, a huge inspiration since the inception of the podcast. And it's quite nice just to talk to someone that's not really that bothered about the ball pythons as such, or not really that bothered about the reptiles, but still involved in the community and in the scene. So it's pretty cool to see. Obviously, I didn't run the sponsors through the show apart from at the start, so I'm going to pull some more sponsors up here. So we have got Sean over at Eve's Temptations and Eve's Temptations Creations and Eve's Temptations Royal Pythons. Sean's got some fantastic projects on the go, absolutely stunning animals, some really cool projects going, triple het stuff, some really cool double visual stuff as well, but also the creations page as well, with the merch, the printing, etc. If you want snake bags, t-shirts, coasters, mugs, anything you can think of to advertise and publish your brand, then Sean's printing is absolutely phenomenal. The bags are the best quality bags on the market by far. I use them, I give them away with all my snakes that I sell, and it just gives a bit of a more professional look and a more professional touch. So as you can see there, Eve's Temptations Creations and Eve's Temptations Royal Pythons. Go check them out, social media. I'm sure you won't be disappointed. And tell her that you come from that Wolfie Royals podcast. You'll get a little bonus, a little discount on specific bundles and things that she's running at the time. So next up we have the guys at Wild Racks. Now obviously Wild Racks have been a sponsor from the very first episode. So if you do need any custom enclosures, racks, vivs, etc., Wild Racks are the ones to hit up. Now if you have, if you're looking for furniture style racks, melamine, fantastic looking things in your front room, or if you don't have a dedicated facility or a dedicated room where you can put all your stainless steel racks, etc., like the JVKs, then Wild Racks are the ones to go for. They make a wide range of different tub sizes, different racks, etc., loads of different colours, customizable tubs, etc. So, and at a really affordable price point as well. So if you are looking for some new racks, etc., Wild Racks is the place to go. And we also have Andrea Lupadini, graphic design. Now, Andrea has designed my Wolfie Royals logo and the podcast logo and the shipping logo that you see behind me. Andrea's work is absolutely phenomenal. It's clean, it's crisp, it's precise. Nothing's ever too much. You can always make little tweaks and little changes. And his artwork is identifiable wherever you go. So if you go to any of the snake shows and you see graphics that look like mine behind, you know exactly that they're made by Andrea. Andrea does everything as well, so it's not just designing like the logos, etc. He does the full shebang. So, clutch cards, banners for tables, roll-up banners like you see behind me. He designs the lot. So if you do need anything, head on over to Andrea Lupadini Design on Facebook. Make sure it's got the blue verified tick, because there is a lot of copies and a lot of imitations out there, but you want to make sure you're getting the right one. And again, check out his podcast bundle and you'll get a good little discount and a nice little bonus there as well. And last but not least, we have the guys over at World of Exotics Wirral. If you're ever in the Wirral area and you need supplies for your reptiles, whether they're pets or breeders, etc., go and check out World of Exotics. They have a wide range of stats, live food, frozen food, livestock in as well, updating their livestock every week. So if you are in the market for anything, or you want to go and have a look, or you're in the area and you're just passing by, make sure you check out the guys over at World of Exotics. And also go on to worldofexotics.co.uk, use the discount code Wolfies10 and you'll get 10% discount on your order as well. But that is pretty much it from me, guys. Now, hopefully I won't have to do too much editing on this one and it'll be out pretty soon. So, not really much left to say apart from thanks very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again soon.